UFC 253, number 5 ranked Pedro Munhoz versus Frankie Edgar, fighting at bantamweight. This is August 22nd. We got a hell of a card to talk about, and some interesting sleeper fights, man. So my guy AJ is joining me today, as always, here on the show. And how are you doing, bro? Before we get into it, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, brother. I'm doing good. Enjoying this sunshine out here and living life, man. Excited for
Dig.
these fights.
Yes,
Excited for
sir.
these fights.
Yes, sir. So without any further ado, why don't we just get into it, right? So the first fight I have on my sleepers, man, is interesting because this is a last-minute replacement. The Ike Villanueva versus Jordan Wright fighting at 205 pounds light heavyweight. Jordan Wright, undefeated. He just got the call, I believe, yesterday. We're recording this on Thursday, which is August 20th, right? So he just got the call yesterday. This is going to be a very short notice fight. And here's what I have that's interesting and why you should watch this in the first place. So Ike Villanueva, man, he suffered a major loss in his UFC debut against a very game Chase Sherman. And, at 205, Ike Villanueva is a very small 205er, right? So if you're a boxing fan, AJ, I know you're going to relate to this one right here. As a boxing fan, you might be able to see a little bit of that Andy Ruiz style movement in Ike Villanueva. He's a punches and bunches, always moving his feet. And he's not going to get you out of there with one shot. That's not the point. The point is to overwhelm you with pressure. He has 13 knockout wins out of his 16 wins, dude, 16-10. And his last 4 wins have all come by a knockout in the first round. But you still have to be cautious in this match because his opponent Jordan Wright 10-0, won no contest. And I want to talk about this because he is, and we'll talk picks a little bit later. But AJ, man, this is another one of your boys fighting out of Jackson Wink, fighting out of Albuquerque, New Mexico, and. Listen, man, 10-0 record. It's hard to dispute that, but I will say, man, I watched his Dana White's Contender Series performance where he got his head knocked off of his shoulders. Absolutely, dude got dismantled, got knocked out, and that fight ended up being the no contest. And I tried to look up why exactly it was the no contest. I didn't get that information. I obviously didn't research it hard enough, but it's really interesting to know that he's making his UFC debut after getting his head knocked off his shoulders. You got to see, and a short notice fight, you got to see how the knockout impacts just the way that he fights. Kind of like a Francis Ngannou after he lost to Miocic. He didn't get knocked out, but dude just fought differently after suffering that initial big-time loss, right? But, without that being said, if you just want to talk about Jordan Wright as a fighter, you got a karate, bouncy, kind of like a Wonder Boy in a way, but this is a big, heavy striker. He wants to use the flashy kicks. He wants to use flashy strikes in general, but if he gets backed up against the cage, I think it's going to be an early night for Ike Villanueva. So that's really the key, man. Dude gets caught up against the cage, it's game over. Ike Villanueva was initially supposed to fight the number 1 ranked 205er out of Mexico, Jorge Gonzalez. And in that fight, I didn't want Ike Villanueva to fight in a phone booth. But since he got a new up-and-comer, a UFC debuter, man, I think they're going to need to get in the phone booth, keep it against the cage, and should be an explosive fight, man. So who you got on the next sleeper, AJ?
On the next sleeper, I'm actually going the fight right before this fight. So they can tune in for a double sleeper. Carlton minus versus Matthew Semmelberger, however you pronounce his last name. Either way, it's going to be a banger. Carlton minus, well-rounded, smart, he knows how to win the decision. So he's in there, he's real smart, tactile, he's going to piece you apart. His only loss comes from a rear naked choke. Now, Matthew, on the other end, doesn't like to leave it to the judges. 7 of his 8 pro fights ended early. Good defense, good takedown defense, striking heavy, and he has wins by rear naked choke and heel hook. So it's going to be a battle of the opposing pressures where, it's going to end up, I think, Matthew coming in real strong, real heavy, a little too much for Carlton. But it's one of those fights where, like you say, matches or styles make the fights. And this fight's coming in for some heat.
Oh man, right on, right on. And hey, your name is Carlton, and you fighting professional fighting in the UFC. You're gonna have to make a name for yourself, you dig? But all jokes aside, you know what I'm saying? Like that should definitely be an interesting fight. I do want to point out that in UFC 252, the first fight of the night ended up being the actual performance of the night. So that's like goes to show that we're talking about these prelim fights, we're talking about these sleeper fights for a reason. It's because these people, they have the potential to make history. You know, do something crazy. Kai Kamaka, that we talked about on the last card, man, he put on a performance that couldn't be matched from the first fight of the night, man. That shows you everything that you need to hear on that. But I'm gonna get into the second one. Let me stop beating around the bush on this one, man. So my next sleeper here is gonna be a welterweight match, 170 pounds, and these are two people who the casual fan might not know who these guys are, and I think it's a shame because, I mean, they're bona fide stars more or less to the hardcore community of UFC. So this is the seventh match of the night. This is Takashi Sato versus Daniel Rodriguez. And when you just look at it, you're like, okay, this is a bunch of random names. I don't know who these guys are. AJ, what kind of experience you got? Have you seen any of these guys fight?
Man, I thought Daniel Rodriguez was one of my cousins out here fighting.
That's hilarious.
I had no idea who this guy was.
I'm saying,
no idea.
No, I'm saying though. So it's like that's the thing, man. You look at these dudes and you're saying like, all right, Skip. You know, let me just look. Ovin St. Preux, that's the co-main. All right, cool. I'm just gonna watch that, right? But I'm telling you, if there's any fight to tune into, you need to watch this fight. Takashi Sato won his last fight by knockout over Jason Witt, which I believe his name. This dude, he packs power in his punches. I mean, 11 of his 16 wins by knockout, no decision wins. So it's like I'm gonna finish you, or you know, I'm gonna lose the fight. Pretty much is what we're going down to. He only has 3 losses on his record, 2-1 in the UFC. I mean, but he's fighting a very, very game Daniel Rodriguez, 12-1-0, 5-0 in his last fights. This dude is riding an 8-win streak right now. 10 of his 12 wins have come by knockout or submission, and he won his UFC debut. This going to mean something to you, AJ. He won his UFC debut over Tim Means with a guillotine choke, a standing guillotine choke. And that's impressive to do, especially noting what Tim Means what he just did in his last fight, man. Dude got the W. You know what I'm saying? So I think this is going to be really interesting because this is going to be another striking battle, man. You know, both of these dudes got power in their hands, but the difference is Takashi Sato, he got that bouncy karate stance as well, and he's a southpaw. So, you know, styles make fights. I always like to give the southpaws a little bit of an advantage in their fights just because as an orthodox fighter, you're just not really used to that. You know, it's just everything is backwards, right? So I'll give them the little bit of the hint. But I will say these two things are why you need to watch this fight. So for Sato, you need to watch this fight because he loads up that rear left hand just like Darren Till. And I know I've made this comparison before, but this one is legitimately incredibly Darren Till-esque. He drops that left hand on you. I don't know if you're getting up after that, right? Now for Daniel Rodriguez, he likes to mix up his punches and his kicks and move in that southpaw stance as well, man. So that's where it really gets interesting. Orthodox, southpaw, switch fighters. You got a little bit of everything in here, man, you know, and Daniel Rodriguez doesn't throw 100% power into his shots unless he's 100% confident that they're going to land. So let him land a couple strikes and it's going to be very, very dangerous, especially because he has effective jab. But that's one that I feel like if there's any fights you guys need to watch for a sleeper, it's definitely this one. So AJ, what's next? What you got?
So there was one thing you said in the last bit, Derek, that resonated with me. I think why I chose this next sleeper. Sure. And he's going to either finish the fight or get finished. And that's Marcin Praccino versus Mike Rodriguez. Praccino, he will go out on shield. 8 wins by knockout striking and 3 L's of the same sort. So he's there, going to stand that phone booth, trade with you. He's, like you said, a bouncy switch stance fighter, which makes exciting, unpredictable movements. And man, his fight IQ and his boxing style and stance are on point. Just he's so smooth, very strong, and like I said, he's there to fight. Mike Rodriguez, now he's a tall southpaw, likes that Muay Thai. So big with the kicks, big with the clinch, coming in. He likes to throw a lot of uppercuts, real heavy leather going to be thrown for this one. It makes for a real exciting fight. All early fights in the main card, and like you said, it's not the classic, the two last fights of the fights you want to see. You want to turn that in early. You want to watch these guys slug it out, throwing heavy leather. It's going to be a fun night.
Right on, man. I mean, hey, I haven't seen too much of Praccino, but I did a little bit of research, and I'm agreeing with you. You know, I'm in consensus with you. Now, Mike Rodriguez, though, I just want to point out one thing, man. I've watched him fight a little bit. If there's any criticism I have against Mike Rodriguez, he gets complacent sometimes, man. Like, he can strike your face off, but sometimes he gets stuck looking in that mirror, you know, faint with nothing coming out. And that's where he can get in trouble. But I agree. Should be a hell of a fight. And if we're really talking hell of a fight, I'm going to get to my last sleeper. Let's just get it over with, man. If you don't know who these guys are, you're about to find out after this Saturday. Austin Hubbard. This is match number 5. Austin Hubbard versus Joe Salecki. And this is going to be at 155 pounds. We've already talked about how the lightweight division is incredibly stacked. And we're just going to add a couple more dudes to the mix, man. Both unranked fighters. Hubbard is 12-4-0. Salecki is 9-2. And I will say this. Now, you know, follow me on this thought experiment because you have to know who these fighters are to understand the comparison. I would compare an Austin Hubbard to a more aggressive Lando Venata, and I would compare Joe Salecki to a little less aggressive Gavin Tucker. And I think this is going to be a very interesting fight because both of these dudes can finish you with a knockout or with a submission. But Joe Salecki he's an incredibly talented wrestler, and his ground and pound is phenomenal. So Austin Hubbard, like Orlando Venata, will throw all these flashy kicks. You know, his boxing is nice. He's in that bouncy stance. A lot of these dudes, it's interesting on this card. We got a lot of like karate stance fighters on this card. But what's really interesting to me is that I don't know how much of this is going to be showcased because it's going to be a fight of styles. You know what I'm saying? Like anything else, the wrestler almost always wins in these scenarios unless he gets knocked out. We'll see what happens. These are some of my favorite matchups because literally it's just whoever gets the edge. If the striking gets the edge, it's going to be a striking clinic. And if the wrestling gets the edge, someone's going to be on their back for the entire fight, man. So we'll see what happens. Not the most exciting fight because of the neutralization factor, but definitely a sleeper. Last thing I want to point out is Joe Salecki. It's all about the leg kicks. Leg kicks are nothing. And I want to see someone get their legs beat up. So tune in, match number 5, Austin Hubbard versus Joe Salecki. Adrian, what you got next, man? AJ, bro?
Well, so we actually agreed on this sleeper fight because it's such a good fight.
Dig.
So I really like you said, Austin Hubbard, he's in there, he's bouncy, he's got these heavy kicks, right? Mm-hmm. Joe Salecki is going to come in, take you down, ground and pounds on point. He has 4 wins by rear naked choke, 6 of 9 wins by submission. He likes to take it down. That's the game plan. But the main thing that switches this fight for me is Austin Hubbard. He's young, but he's got a knee on a hairpin trigger. Oh, yeah. So any chance he can, he's throwing that knee, and it comes up high. He can sit you while you're standing, but Joe Salecki's going to the ground, going to try to take you down, and he's going to be coming. So it's going to be a cancel out of match, which taken down, stand up, and actually trade. I'm excited.
Yeah, man. That's the thing. And it's interesting, right? Because when you get there's so many good fights on here, but when you get the overlapping sleepers, it kind of tells you we're seeing something in the matchups here. You know, it's not necessarily, for me, I'm not looking at this as just the names, right? Because if you just go by the names, you're not going to see the most exciting fights. But when I'm looking at what matchups produce the most exciting bouts, I mean, you know, like we already talked about the neutralization effect, which can definitely change things. But, I mean, this is up there to be one of the most exciting, man. So, AJ, man, now, you know, the moment we've all been waiting for. Let's go over our main card picks, man. I want you to start first. So we talked about what fights are going to be good. Now, you know, let's go over our picks.
All right, main card starting off. Daniel Rodriguez versus Takashi Sato. I'm going Daniel Rodriguez. It's crazy. He's got a stiff jab. He's finished 10 of his 12 fights. And it's going to be hard because Takashi Sato is well-rounded. I literally wrote for both of these guys a well-rounded savage. Yeah. It's almost like they're fighting each other because they both got solid left hands. They're both southpaws. And it's funny that you said the Tim Means thing because I had that written down too. Tim Means round 2 and a standing guillotine choke. Pretty hard.
That's not an easy thing to do whatsoever.
Pretty impressive. But I got Daniel Rodriguez taking it home. Next up, in Marcin Praccino versus Mike Rodriguez, I'm going Marcin. He's right there, a warrior, willing to go out on his shield, bouncy, fast, and great IQ. I think it's going to be a short night for Mike Rodriguez. And he's not going to be able to get hands on him. He's not going to be able to pull him in that clinch. He's just going to be sitting there getting tagged up from the outside and being walked down. Next up, we got Vince St. Preux, OSP, versus Alonzo Menifield. And OSP, he's a veteran of the game. He's a veteran at 205. But I'm going with the young gun, Alonzo Menifield, because he likes to finish the fight early and viciously. Heavy strikes. His only downfall is he's got a small tank. And that's kind of what comes with the power. He throws heavy, and if he catches OSP early, he's going to finish him. He's down to walk. He's not scared to walk forward and bang, but that it comes at a price because his gas tank, you could severely see in his last fight that he was weathered. He was struggling in round 2 and 3. And I think that's why he ultimately lost the decision win. OSP, greatest switch stance, talented on the ground with fast kicks, super bouncy. So this is going to be a challenge for the young guy, but I'm going the young gun Alonzo coming out.
All right.
Dub. Next up for the main event, Pedro Munhoz versus Frankie Edgar. I'm again going with the youngin, Pedro Munhoz. Yeah, Frankie Edgar's a legend. One thing that actually surprised me, I saw this. He's been in the UFC since 2007, and I was still in high school when this guy was fighting savages like Gray Maynard, Jim Miller, A10 Jim Miller, and Sean Shirk, just out there just getting it with fighting grown men. Frankie Edgar's nothing to laugh at. He's a legend for sure, but he tends to leave his chin up and kind of lean in, where Pedro Munhoz has these great teep kicks coming in strong, and he's very linear, right down the pipe. He's going to be there all day. And if he can get Frankie Edgar to trade with him, it's not going to be a good night, especially when Frankie Edgar had losses to like big KO losses to the Zombie and to Brian Ortega. I'm going to see how that chin holds up. And I don't think it's going to be good for Frankie. So I'm going Pedro Munhoz KO win.
All right.
What about you, Derek? What you got?
Well, before I get into mine, man, give me one last one. You just missed one of them. Agapova versus Dobson. I already know what the answer is going to be, but who you got for that one?
Maria Agapova versus Shayna Dobson. I'm sorry, I wrote that down as the pre. Oh, it did get added. So I actually got Maria Agapova. She's loose, long, tall for the division, very balanced. 4 of her 9 wins by submission, 3 of her 9 by striking. Can finish the fight either way. What I liked about her, strong boxing. She's a 2-time Kazakhstan boxing champ and loves those body shots. Just loves to light that liver up, which if you've ever taken a liver shot, you know how bad it hurts. And I think Shayna Dobson is a little too they've thrown her into the fire a little too early, I think. She's lost more than she's won. It's going to be a real show of how hungry this young woman is, because she does have a great jab, great movement, nice wide base, but she's, like I said, she's lost more than she's won. And I think it's going to be a hard fight for her against the tall, loose Maria Agapova.
I'm 100% with you, man. And like I said, I already knew who he was going to pick. Dobson, I think she's 1-4 in her last 5 and been knocked out or submitted in like most of those losses. It's tough, man. It's tough to have confidence in that predicament, man. But let me go over mine, man, because we have a little bit of a different picks, but I think it should be interesting because I think there's a lot of 50-50 shots on here. So first, Sato versus Rodriguez. I'm going Sato. I just think that dude's on a very impressive streak. I feel kind of dumb because my gut tells me Daniel Rodriguez all day long, but Sato, the way he pulled off that knockout win, came out of nowhere in his last fight, and I see it coming again in this fight. I think I have it in my official picks by decision, but I wouldn't be surprised with Sato coming with a knockout. Next, Agapova. I have her completely steamrolling Dobson by way of submission, actually. I think Dobson's been finished so many times, she's not going to get finished again. I think she's gonna prove that she has heart and resilience, but it doesn't matter how much heart and resilience you have when you're being choked and you can't breathe. So I think she's going to fall to like a rear naked. I definitely think. So next, Praccino, I got him dismantling Mike Rodriguez. Like I said, the complacency I've seen in Rodriguez's previous fights just doesn't compel me to want to pick him to be the victor, especially when you got a dude who will shut your lights off with one punch. I mean, both of these dudes can do that, but Praccino will put you to sleep legitimately. Next, man. Now, this is where we get interesting because this is when I got something to actually talk about, right? OSP, Vince St. Preux versus Alonzo Menifield. Now, Alonzo Menifield, I'm almost positive, got his start on Dana White's Contender Series, so he's one of the farm system fighters here in the UFC. But OSP has one thing that Menifield will never, or he can't have at this moment. It's just not possible, and that's called veteran experience, dude. OSP, 24-14. In his MMA career. Now, Alonzo Menifield is 9-1. Now, that just goes to show you this dude has had, let me see if my math is decent, 38 fights compared to 10. that's a little bit of an experience gap, if you ask me. Now, do I think OSP can get caught and get knocked out? Yes, of course. But this is what I see happening. I see OSP using his veteran prowess to subdue the striking and the forward pressure of Menafield. I see him wrapping him up in the clinch, and then I see him hitting him with the Von Flue choke or the OSP choke is what we're going to be calling it now, because he has the most... is that the choke I'm talking about, right? Von Flue choke?
It is the Von Flue choke.
Yeah,
yep.
but we renamed it to the OSP.
He hit it against... It should be. I'm pretty sure with the last... is not the Ben Rothwell fight, but the fight before, I'm pretty sure that's the one that took it for the most.
Yeah, and then, so basically, yes, I got OSP by submission. I think second round should be decent. Menafield might get himself out the first round. And then lastly, main event, number 5, Pedro Munhoz versus Frankie Edgar. I'm going Frankie Edgar. And here's the reason why. Because everything in my mind tells me that Pedro Munhoz, he's the one who should be winning this fight. If you watched his last fight, he got the backpack put on him, man. Aljo, the backpack got put on him, and that grip is tight, man. But in the fights before that, so let's see. In the fights before that, his last 5, Munhoz lost to Aljamain Sterling. He knocked out Cody Garbrandt, knocked out Brian Caraway, beat Brett Johns by decision, and then lost to John Dodson before that, man. Like, he is on a streak of a streak. Pedro Munhoz could easily win by knockout, but here's why I have Frankie Edgar winning by decision. You're completely right, AJ, man. Lost to the Korean Zombie by a knockout, lost to Max Holloway decision, lost to Brian Ortega knockout. He's 2-3 in his last 5. He's only beaten Cub Swanson by decision and Yair Rodriguez by knockout, which is very impressive. But this is what I have to say. The reach advantage. He has a 7-inch reach advantage, Edgar does, on Munhoz, right? So 72-inch reach for Edgar versus a 65-inch reach for Pedro Munhoz. And Frankie Edgar could wrestle his ass off, but one thing, if he can keep that jab crisp like a piston and can keep at range, I always like going with the fighter who has a little more reach on him, man. I just think it's a very, very helpful tool to have, an advantage to have, man. So that's the picks, man. That's basically the picks for both of us, man. But AJ, do you got any other comments on this card, man? Like, is there any other fights besides the things that we've talked about? You don't even got to break it down in depth that you just think are an interesting addition to the card, or any last notes pertaining to this card specifically?
I think the biggest takeaway from this entire card, there's so many good fights on this card, that I think the one thing I'm excited for is it's really a sleeper of a card, because you only have the big names of the two, OSP versus Alonzo Manafield and Pedro Munhoz versus Frankie Edgar. That's kind of all the normal, or the pedestrian or the fan would know. But if you dig deep, this whole card is a sleeper. Yeah. And I'm happy it's on ESPN Plus, because so many more fans are going to be able to watch some real good up and coming fights where they don't know names. They're seeing them for the first time, and they're watching just bombs be dropped, full action. Even the wrestlers are solid on the ground, and they know how to bang, they know how to strike. It's going to be a good one for the fans to come up and see the new generation of the UFC coming out to play.
I'm with you, and that's what's important right there. That's what the point that I wanted to make, is that stars are being made in real time right now. Like, we're seeing these dudes who are doing something that's going to gain them even more points, because Dana White constantly notes after these fights that he wants someone who's going to come in on short notice, because that is with the pandemic, with the COVID, it's all about short notice fights right now. He wants people that are going to come in short notice, handle business, and then want to fight directly after, man. So, we're seeing the real people who are going to advance and progress the UFC into the next iteration, the next generation, like you said, man. So lots of really cool fights. AJ, man, something that I forgot to do, even though I promised that I would do it in the very beginning of the fight. So let's do it, man. I promise I'm going to get this right eventually. UFC 252. We never really did a recap of our picks, but we're going to hold ourselves accountable here, because we're giving, folks, everyone listening, we're giving you picks, but we got to hold accountable to that, right? So for transparency, I went 6 for 11 with my last picks. Now, fair. It's like a 54%, right? 55%. That's decent. At least I hit the 50% mark. AJ, you hit 4 for 11. There were only a couple picks apart. In all honesty, man, wasn't my best night. Wasn't AJ's best night. But it's okay, because that's the fight game and it can go any way. But I want to break down one fight in particular that I was really surprised that I didn't get it right, man. Obviously, it's the name of the game, right? So three fights that I was really surprised. Pineda beating Herbert Burns. Herbert Burns, right? Yeah, Herbert Burns. Yeah, Pineda being Herbert Burns, TKO. That was crazy. I thought Burns was just going to pull out the sub easy. Proved to be incredibly wrong. Danny Chavez looking like a world beater against TJ Brown. Man, I'm not going to touch on that one, but folks, go look up that dude, Danny Chavez, because he looked amazing. Dude's already like 35 years old, but I mean, if he can make something happen in the next couple years, we could have a champion on our hands. And then lastly, the big one, Stipe Miocic edged out Daniel Cormier. Had half of his finger in dude's eye, but it's okay because Cormier returned the favor in their fights. And, man, it was a trilogy of a trilogy. But I'll tell you what, very disappointed in my pick because I thought Daniel Cormier was going to utilize his wrestling a lot more. And he just showed that striking was the name of the game. But Stipe Miocic showed he has – I mean, you cannot say he's not the best. There's no way you can't say that or that you can say that he is not the best. Dude has the best chin in all of the UFC. Dude could outlast Francis Ngannou, beat Cormier twice. I mean, dude beat Verdum to win the champion. Like, dude's beating everybody. He's the best heavyweight. I have to say apologies because I disrespected Stipe, and I need right now for everybody to give the man his flowers while he's still here because dude's the most humble, I think it's not why he's not as popular as he could be is because he don't talk trash, bro. He just firefights and then comes in and knocks people out or decisions them up real good and then bounces. But that was my takeaways from the UFC 252. AJ, what do you got for your recap?
UFC 252 is a little rough for me too. Like you said, I was sitting there, started watching the first fight, second fight, third fight. None of them went my way, and I knew it was going to be a long night for me. But like you said, Herbert Burns getting beat, just really, I didn't see that coming at all. The TJ Brown fight, it took me by storm too. I felt like I was in there getting my ass beat too.
Yeah, right.
It was rough.
Yeah.
But the one that really got me, Sean O'Malley. Everybody I was talking to, I was clowning, talking smack. Sean O'Malley's knockout first round, and he was doing the same. If you follow Sean O'Malley on social media, he was calling for a round one knockout. Wasn't even looking at Chito Vera, looking onto the back, breaks his foot, and it seems like, or I can't remember if it's actually a broke or a high sprain, but it's a concern. And like Chito Vera said, there's a lot of leg kicks in the game, and you break a foot, and it's going to be there for a long time.
Yeah.
And it was a bad look getting carried out, but hopefully he'll be back coming in, and hopefully this next card we can also get back on track with the dubs too.
Yeah, no, right, man. And, that's interesting. And I said on the show, man, I just had a feeling that Chito Vera, dude's experience, dude is no joke, and Sean O'Malley, what got me and what made me really say, like, I'm not going to pick O'Malley is that I feel like was feeling himself a little bit too much, like O'Malley was definitely, I don't want to say looking past him because there wasn't really evidence he was looking past him, but I thought he just felt he was untouchable. He was dropping people, knocking people out in the first round. There's nothing nobody could do to really stop him until Chito Vera says, hey man, what he said is like, bro, like, you don't want to kick against a kicker, bro. Like, I do this for real. Like, this is not a joke. And Chito Vera, he gained a really big fan out of me. I was always kind of a fan, but I'm really a big fan now because as soon as he wins, he talks about how, hey, very like on the Goggins approach. And I know AJ, I know what's up, but for those who don't know, David Goggins, this former, give me the credentials, man, because I'm blanking right now.
Whew. Former U.S. Navy SEAL. He runs ultra marathons. He's just a savage amongst the savages.
Yeah.
And also a award-winning author, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, there we go, right? But
I think it's award-winning.
Yeah, but Can't Hurt Me. Go pick up the book, you dig? But the point I wanted to make is he was kind of mimicking some of that, like, Goggins, Rogan ideology of, listen, like, we just come out here and we don't expect nothing. We come here to kill, and that's it. And we get the job done, and we go home, and, we're going to regroup from there. And it was no, I'm about to party. Look, I just knocked out this dude. No talking mess. He was just like, listen, man, like, you doubted me, but I don't give a fuck what the doubters say because I'm going to make it happen regardless. So big fan now. But, so this is what we got, man. We gave you the sleepers. We gave you our picks. We're going to have the prelim picks right up here on the screen somewhere. I got my finger right here, you dig? And, man, that's pretty much all we got. AJ, man, it's been a pleasure, and we'll see what happens this Saturday. Hopefully both of us can definitely get back and to get a couple more dubs on the streak, man. So that's all I got. AJ, any last words?
No, man, it's good to be here. Excited for the fights and looking to tune in on Saturday, brother.
Yes, sir. So, folks, comment
Thanks
below.
for having me again.
Oh, of course. Comment below and let me know, who you picking and what you thinking. Or even if you don't want to pick, do your picks, maybe that's a little bit too much pressure, man. Just give us the overall vibes on the card, man. But we'll be back. So let's let them know, AJ, we're skipping the next UFC card. It's Anthony Smith versus something Rockich. And apologies because I haven't done my research yet. It's not next week yet, forgive me. But it's going to be a 3-round main event. I just felt like it's not going to be notable enough of a card to do. So we're going to skip that one and do plenty of preparation to make sure that we're good for the Israel Adesanya versus Paulo Costa for the middleweight championship, man. It's going to be a hell of a card. But let's not think ahead. Let's not think past this card. And make sure you catch the sleepers, folks. Until next time. Peace.